what's the famous blue cheese? And he said Red Leicester.
You're so toxic that everything you touch turns to a pile of shit, I'm afraid. And spend the entire time talking about a party that has got 5 MPs. Is that Burnham has managed to completely screw himself over.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Nick Talks. This episode's amazing, still wonderful, and still younger than me is a good friend of mine, that press and journalist. How you doing, Ash?
Hi Nick, yeah, I'm really good. Thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. Last few days or the last week, the bandwidth mainly on the political front has been the Labour conference. I'm not normally interested in any people's conferences because they're always talking to the gallery, they're always talking to their supporters. It's all about internal politics. It's not really for anybody else. It's a way of slapping each other on the back. Aren't we great? Aren't we amazing? We're definitely going to win the next election. I get why they do it. But this time, this Labour conference, they seem to have gone more mental than normal. They seem to be focused on Reform UK, who's their number one challenger. I get that. But the more they go on about reform, the more airtime they're giving reform, the more PR they're giving reform, and the more they're saying to the people who are sat on the fence, who we don't know which way they're going to vote, the more of them, I reckon, are saying, I'm voting for reform. Because Labour have just spent the last week telling everybody, you're a racist, you're evil, you're a Nazi, you want to lower immigration, you're a Nazi. And I'm not a supporter of reform. And if there's an election today, I'm voting reform. I'm not even a supporter.
This is it, isn't it? I mean, like you just correctly said, your conference is your chance to pat each other on the back, have a good time. Surely everyone has a few drinks together. You're celebrating the achievements, which is obviously a very difficult thing for these lot to do. There aren't any, so it's very difficult. But the last thing you do, and if I was advising I made a video on this, and if I was advising these people, the last thing I would tell them to do is go to their own party conference and spend the entire time talking about a party that has got 5 MPs. What the hell are you doing? You should be talking about yourselves, trying to big yourselves up. I mean, obviously, they didn't expect to go to conference having been now the most popular prime minister on record, accompanied by the most unpopular chancellor on record either. But there's other things they could have done. But the trouble is, they're so marred in scandal now. Everywhere you look, there's another scandal all the time. You've still got this Morgan McSweeney stuff going on in the background. People are releasing now new documents just today about this Labour Together organisation that's bankrolled 52 MPs into Parliament. So they're turning out to be a very shady organisation. And by the way, that digital ID, that announcement, that was designed to get McSweeney off the front pages. That, and now they've realised how unpopular that is. You'll notice that Starmer didn't even mention it in his calamitous conference speech. And it was a bad speech, by the way. Yes, there were people out there like, the usual Sky News types like Beth Rigby going, oh, Starmer feels buoyed by this speech. He should do as well. It was a very good speech. Like, what? There was nothing in it. He didn't even talk, he barely spoke about Labour. And in fact, I would go as far as to say at the end of that speech, he actually incited violence against people like Nigel Farage and people who support Reform UK. And like you rightly said, basically called the entire party racists. And now he's had to roll back on that, saying, oh no, I'm not calling Reform UK voters racist. And then he's had to roll back again, saying, oh, I didn't call Nigel Farage racist. So I'm like, well, who are you calling then? So it's the policy, right? So who came up with the policy? Probably Farage and some others. Who supports the policy? Reform UK voters, and probably a lot more people around the country as well, given the way the polls have gone this week for Labour and the way they've gone for Reform UK, climbing again. It was an absolute calamity. You know what you should have done if I was advising Starmer? Keep your nose away from that conference. Yes, of course you've got to go and make a speech. Granted, you're party leader, but go and keep it a low-key speech. Keep it pretty boring so you don't make any headlines whatsoever, because every time people see you now, you're just toxic. You're so toxic that everything you touch turns to a pile of shit, I'm afraid. And he must know he's done. He must do. He's got till May at the latest, but he's done. He's finished. The only saving grace for him is that Burnham has managed to completely screw himself over. And you're right in what you said before, by the way. I think was it the last time we spoke. What Burnham's like Starmer, he believes in nothing. He doesn't have any principles. He just wanted the top job before Labour get voted out of power forever, which is going to happen at the next election. And now he's overplayed his hand as well. There's no one to challenge Starmer at the minute because even all the ministers in the cabinet, most of them are going to lose their seats anyway. And those that aren't going to lose their seats will be tarred with the Starmer brush for the rest of their political lives, and they'll never get a cabinet position ever again.
I agree, they're in a mess. If I was Starmer and I was doing my speech at conference, I never would have mentioned Reform UK. I would have said, I would have talked about all their successes. They can find some successes, tiny things that we think are irrelevant. We're now giving more kids free school breakfasts. We've reduced waiting lists on the NHS, even though it turns out those people died. I would have found some lies, some good lies, talked about that. And then I would have said, and because we're being so successful, the Tories are still going down in the polls, and that's down to our. I'd have claimed, that his audience would have loved it, and it would have been all lies and all PR. But he would have made a good speech. It would have buoyed everybody up. But instead, he spent it all talking about reform and calling everyone racist, which then the rest of the country who are all sick of mass immigration have all gone, so you mean me? And you're also saying you're going to do nothing about mass immigration because it's racist to do something about mass immigration. And you're saying you're not a racist. Everything he did was just the wrong thing altogether.
I just wonder who's advising him. I just think who's telling you to say this stuff? I don't believe for a second Starmer's got the nous to write a speech himself. He's probably used someone's used Chat GPT or something to come up with that speech. But if he's decided to do it because he's not listened to anybody, then fine, it's his fault. But I don't believe for a second it was him. Somebody has put that speech together and said, "You go out there and you read that out." And that's what's happened here, I think, because he hasn't. If he's got any brains about him, Starmer, he will want to stay as far away from Nigel Farage as humanly possible. I was speaking to somebody inside the Labour Party, and they said it's been talked about Starmer challenging Farage to a one-on-one debate.
Oh, Jesus. He never should do that.
I said to this well, I've said it now. I said it was an MP. Obviously, I'm not going to say which MP. I said to this MP, I said, if you want my advice, you probably don't. I said, that is the very, very last thing you want to do. Farage is probably the greatest debater of our. In fact, he is the greatest debater of our generation. He doesn't use notes. He doesn't use a script, and he speaks from the heart. Really, he says what he believes, which is why he doesn't need a script. I said, if you put that robot, I said it more politely than that, but this was the gist of it. If you put that robot up against Farage, he's going to get slaughtered, and that's the very last thing you want to do. Admittedly, this MP is not senior enough to be telling Starmer what to do or anything like that. But that's what I said. You very last thing you want to do is see Starmer debate Farage. It could be attacked. I mean, if we get to a point where they've got literally nothing to lose, then I suppose it might be a last throw of the dice, like Corbyn did, for example, before the 2019 general election, when he was well behind Boris. He was going to get slaughtered, and he decided to go and get interviewed by Andrew Neil, didn't he? And it was a complete calamity. The whole thing was a disaster. So it could be something Starmer does as a very last resort. But if he's doing that, he's literally got nothing left to fight for. He's finished if he debates Farage.
If we have to put a little bit of strategy and a little bit of common sense and intelligence behind Starmer's speech, Starmer's approach, and Starmer wanting to debate Nigel Farage, then my only take on this is this. They've realised they've lost the next election. They've realised there's nothing they can do to save anything. They know they can't stop the boats. They know there's nothing they can do. They're done and dusted. And I think they've decided their only strategy is to destroy Reform UK. They know it's a long shot, but they may be thinking all we can do now for the next couple of years is bang on about how evil, how racist Reform UK are. And over time, maybe that will impact the public opinion of them. And I think that's their only strategy going forward. And I think we're going to see a lot more of this over the next year or two. And I think the atmosphere, the rhetoric is going to get nastier and nastier from Labour to Reform. And we saw it with David Lammy. David Lammy says, "Oh, I'm not going to call these people racist." But Nigel Farage, flirted with the Hitler Youth. It's like he flirted with Hitler Youth. Ended in 1945. Farage wasn't born until after that, and he's flirted with Hitler. I mean, that's the newest way I've heard of calling someone a Nazi. The man is an ass, but we're going to see a lot more of that. And wait until they start funding the press and advertisements. Nigel Farage and Reform are going to be bombarded with this for the next few years, because I think they think it's the only way to destroy them, because they haven't got any answers for anything.
Sorry for the language to your viewers, but let's face it, Lammy is just a fat wanker, isn't he? He's absolutely useless. Imagine saying that. I would love to have asked, if I was that interviewer, I'd have said to Lammy, what year did World War II end? I bet he doesn't know. I bet he does not know. Of course the Hitler Youth was finished. Farage was born in 1964. So the very earliest, and he'd have had to do it while he was still in nappies, was flirt with Hitler Youth 19 years after it ended while he couldn't even speak. What is, this is the same David Lammy that thought Marie Antoinette carried out radiology research. He's an absolute moron. Why is he in the position that
he did better than that? So he came out with 2-1s better than Marie Antoinette. He was asked, "What's the famous blue cheese?" And he said Red Leicester.
Oh, yeah.
And he was asked who came before, something like, who came before Henry V?
No, who came after Henry VIII? He said,
and he said Henry VII.
Yeah.
I mean, the Marie Antoinette one. You might not know who she is, but surely blue and red are different, and surely 7 comes before 8. It's just, it's an idiot.
Surely you'd know the difference between Marie Curie and Marie Antoinette. You would think everybody knows who Marie Curie is because of the charity. You'd think so anyway, wouldn't you? I mean, dear God, the man is such an oaf. And do you know why he's in a job? Because Starmer can turn around and say, look, it's the first black foreign secretary.
Same with Rachel Reeves, first female chancellor.
First female chancellor, yeah. We've got the first black deputy prime minister. Yeah, but he's shit. And he's still there. And this will be Starmer's legacy, this. Yeah, I created the first female chancellor and all this. I'm like, yeah, but they're rubbish. You've got brain-dead morons inside there. And you know what's frightening? If Starmer is ousted at any point, Lammy would take over, albeit temporarily, but Lammy would take over. That is absolutely frightening. On a bit more of a serious note, going back, some of these polls have been horrendous since Starmer's speech. For example, Ipsos Mori had Labour down another 3 points in the polls. Who else was it? Who was the other one? Maureen Common had Labour down 5 points. But these polls were done just as the conference was ending. So that you've not really seen the full impact there of the stupid speech that Starmer gave and the stupid reason, all these cabinet ministers going out there and just calling everybody racist. What we're seeing there in these polls this week is the impact of the digital ID announcement. What we'll see next week when Labour drop even further is the impact of Starmer calling, I don't know, maybe 70-80% of the country, possibly more, racists. And then we're going to see a massive drop in the polls.
Give us a quick average of, at the moment, I mean, it won't be completely accurate, as we know, but roughly where are the Tories down the polls, where are Labour, where's Reform on average?
If you average the Tories out across different polls, you're probably looking at about 18%. 19%. Some have them lower, of course, some have them higher, just the way it is. If you look at Labour, anything between 19 and 22%, but the average, say about 20% Labour at the minute. And Reform UK are sitting anywhere between 29 and 34, depending on which polls do you look at. So average there, say 31, 32%. something like that. There's a massive gap between these parties now. The average lead for Reform UK is about 10 points. And I can only see that increasing even further the way things are going. People are just not, people have just had enough. I know I keep repeating myself, I know I've said it. People have just had enough of the establishment. They've had enough of the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Tories, and I think I've made two videos on this recently. They're all banding together now to try and keep reform out. Starmer was asked in an interview by, I can't think who it was, um, would you sleep easier under a Tory government than a reform one? And he said, well, at least when the Tories are in charge, there's no culture of fear. And then you've got the Lib Dems walking around with Union Jacks everywhere, Labour doing the same thing. They're all going, recapture the flag. Are you telling me this isn't coordinated? Of course it is. Because they're all blur-rights. All three of them. All three of the main parties. They all believe in very little politically, but they believe in the system. The system that they've always been a part of. Very few of these people have had proper jobs, have ever lived in the real world, especially Starmer. He's just lived off the taxpayer's purse all of his life, just like most of them have, whether it's being a counsellor, whether it's being a human rights lawyer that's paid by the public purse, of course, because that's how you get paid for that kind of work. Whether it's working in the DPP, paid by the public purse. And then what do? Oh, I know, I'll go and be an MP, paid by the public purse. These people are fit for nothing in the real world. And just watch, when they all get voted out next time round, who knows where they'll end up. Because that's what they're terrified of. They're going to be outside of the establishment. Because if Reform can do a good job, and if they can actually bring some genuine change to this country, which is going to be one hell of an uphill battle, beating the civil service, for example, then these people are going to have lost their taxpayer-funded lifestyles. And what are they going to do then? None of them are qualified to do anything, apart from the odd lawyer. I suppose they'll get work again.
At this moment in time, Reform UK are an existential threat to all the other parties. It might not be like this in 2-3 years' time, but let's talk about today. It is at the moment. All those parties see Reform not only as the competition, but also as I mean, I don't mean the enemy as in you've a different party, but they see them as the enemy. You're going to break up the establishment. You're the enemy. Now, I can definitely see the Greens, Lib Dems, and Labour coming together in an unofficial pact to make sure that they've got the best chance of winning certain seats in certain areas, and maybe even coming to a coalition if they had enough seats after the next general election. That's what they would be hoping. I can even see the Tories very unofficially doing something similar as well, because Reform are everyone's enemy. And I can see the Tories saying to Labour, we're worse than you. We've got less polling than you. So the behind the scenes nitty gritty Machiavellian string pulling is going to be off the charts towards the next election.
I'm not sure I could see the Tories banding together with Labour.
No, I don't think they'll have a band. I can see some unofficial behind the scenes jiggery pokery, because the Tories are at risk of going under, and everyone.
If they do, I can pretty much guarantee you will never find out about it. I'd be very surprised if they want, because if it came out publicly, for example, that the Labour Party and the Tory Party and probably the Lib Dems as well, all banded together to keep Reform out, that would probably finish the Labour. That would be the final torpedo, if you will, in the Labour Party and the Tory Party ship altogether. They'd be completely finished after that, because then they'd just be confirming what we already know, don't we? They're just two cheeks of the same arse anyway. And we know that anyway. So they'd basically be telling us, yeah, that's what we are. We're the establishment. We're trying to keep the status quo going, and we're trying to keep anybody new with any potential fresh ideas out. And to be honest with you, I'm getting to the point now where I think, regardless of who Labour get into bed with to try and form the next coalition government or whatever, I don't think it matters. The way the polling is going, the way these MRP polls, which are the mega polls, of course, are showing the amount of seats Reform are going to get, they're regularly showing now an overall majority of quite a bit. And I think, actually, with the help of people like Kemi Badenoch, with the help of Starmer, And let's face it, who's going to vote for that clown Ed Davey? Um, I think he's on for. I think he's pushing an open door. As long as nothing bad happens between now and the next election, and Reform don't do anything stupid, and no horrible skeleton doesn't come out the closet from somewhere, they're on for a majority, and I don't think there's anybody that can stop him.
I think we're too far out yet to think that. Um, we've had many political parties before midterms where they look like they're going to win the next election and don't. We had the SDP in the 80s who looked like they were going to end Labour and then suddenly disappeared. So big things can happen. But what I can see Labour and Tories doing, you're right, that it won't be official. Both of them have got less money now than they ever had before because their memberships have dropped. So I can see them at a general election going, these 50 seats, the Tories are saying, these 50 seats, we're going to give no money to the candidate because we can't afford it. Wink, 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 wink. And Labour going, these 50 seats, we're going to give no money to because we're short of money to, and then going wink, 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 wink. And I think the deals are going to be like that.
Yeah, just put paper candidates up or something like that. And yeah, it's absolutely possible the establishment will band together to try and keep reform out. I accept that. I don't think there's anything that can stop that tidal wave. And there's no way that these lot are going till 2029. I'm still sticking with me. It might be wrong, but I just don't. I know we've had this debate loads of times. We think different things on it, but there's no way Starmer is going to let someone take his job. He will call an election before he takes that job. And your theory, which was credible, of course, about Angela Rayner and him going, look, I've handed over to the first female leader of the Labour Party. That's gone down the shitter now, and that's not going to happen. So I think he'll call an election. He is not going to want someone swanning in and taking his job, and he'll take the party down with him if he has to, because that's how highly he thinks of himself.
I'm looking forward to May. Yeah, I'm looking forward to
Oh, so am I. We've got to do a live stream when the results are coming in and watch him get slaughtered. It's gonna be brilliant.
Labour slaughtered, Tories even worse. We'll carry on going down. Greens will do better. Lib Dems will do. Dem, Greens and Lib Dems will increase their seats, and Reform are going to go gangbusters. And, in Scotland, less so in Scotland, but they'll make gains in Scotland, in Wales, in England. It's going to be great to see. And then after that, all those other parties then will have to have a serious conversation with themselves, and that's when they're going to change tactics and change leaders, and we'll see what comes after that. But you're right, May. Let's do a live stream and let's see what's going on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's like you said, we could end up. Well, we will end up with Reform making massive gains, especially in the English Council elections and the Welsh Senate, without a doubt. But you could end up straight away within a matter of days of those election results coming in. Kemi Badenoch being ousted because it's far easier to get rid of her, and Starmer facing a no confidence vote within days of each other. Gotta get some videos out there. I'm looking forward to it.
Ash, you've got a cruel streak sometimes. You've got a cruel streak. But thanks for popping on today.
Yeah, cheers, Nick. Pleasure.
Thank you. Bye bye.